Disclaimer: this show is not for the faint of heart or the easily offended. The views expressed here are that of the show hosts only, and not their wives, girlfriends, husbands, boyfriends, polygamous partners, employers, music artists, businesses, or anyone other than the Cognitive Disillusions podcasters. The explicit tag is there for a good reason. Please proceed with caution.
Every one of us will have to decide whether or not we want to keep this great republic or whether we're willing to sacrifice it and surrender it to tyranny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Cognitive Disillusions podcast, where we address the current issues of today with brash humor, skepticism, or aggression to invoke critical thinking in the masses. We take our tightly held beliefs, everyone's tightly held beliefs, mash them up with current events, politics, and religion, then throw them to the fires of skepticism. We magnify the so-called logic, then blow it all up. There is no green zone of safety for a lack of critical thinking. This is episode number 23. Your hosts today are Joel, John, and I'm Al, and we're your tormentors. Tonight we're going to be discussing a few topics. We can't remember apparently which one of them is, but one of them is the meme which has been going around, and that is the assertion that ISIS isn't a religious group. The meme that I've seen recently was 250 Muslims slaughtered in 4 Muslim cities in a week. Still think ISIS is Islamic? We're going to cover that one and several others. How are you guys doing today? Joel? John?
I didn't think you'd ever ask.
Oh, well, fuck you then.
I'm doing good, John.
I'm decent. Got a little bit of a cough, but I'm okay.
You're one of the most non-committal people I've ever met when it comes to answering the question, how are you doing?
I'm generally non-committal.
Yeah, I know.
My wife got the greatest commitment I've ever made in my life.
Well, so did the U.S. government.
No, not so much, because I obviously wasn't committed enough because I'm being retired. So,
well, that's not on you, buddy. I'd never retire you. I could never quit you.
Oh my god.
How very sweet.
Boy, it's a good thing I didn't say that in certain Middle Eastern countries, I'll tell you that.
A little disturbing.
Okay.
So I realized that you guys already had a little back and forth on Facebook Messenger.
A tiff?
A what?
A tiff? A little tiff?
Bit of a tiff.
Yeah.
So we'll start with John, because John had the counterpoint here, and Joel and I seem to have responded to 2 separate memes at, 3-4 hours apart on our own respective pages, almost identically. So we're going to give John the first and probably the last word on this.
Well, before we do that, can we actually reference the other meme that was going? I have it pulled up here if you'd like me to hit this.
Do.
So one of the meme that I initially was exposed to was at We Teach Life Sir _ this meme going around. It says ISIS just bombed a mosque in the second holiest city in Islam during the holiest month in Islam. Don't ever say that ISIS represents Islam. So that was the other meme. The one that you referenced, of course, being the other side of that.
Yeah. John, any response to those?
Not just yet. I haven't read those.
Well,
okay.
On Facebook Messenger, and you seem to respond pretty assertedly on the meme that we were talking about.
Well, now that you showed me the meme, yes. I think that the meme is mostly correct. I'm looking at an article on Pathos that's got a relatively decent breakdown. According to this article, the Quran does not specifically forbid the killing of other Muslims, but it doesn't exactly encourage it either. It does make it an unforgivable sin to enslave another Muslim. My initial impression is that, of course, ISIS are Muslims, but they do not represent Islam, which was my argument with Joel earlier today. He was making the assertion that ISIS represents Islam, and I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't think that was the assertion, because I go by the same basis. This meme and a lot of the viewpoint that's trying to be pushed is that they aren't Islamic because they've attacked Muslims. When ISIS's actual name, or ISIS, is the Islamic State, is the first two letters right there, Islamic State. They push a Hadithic and usually Shia, sometimes Sunni, version of laws. They want a caliphate by definition. They're pushing for an Islamic caliphate. And just because they're killing Muslims does not detract from the fact that they are Muslim. And my position is these memes are pushing a no true Scotsman fallacy from the other side. Usually a no true Scotsman fallacy is you're not a true this or that. Not a true Scotsman, not a true Christian if you don't represent Christianity in this way. Or not a true Muslim if you don't represent Islam this way. And that's basically what these memes are saying, is these aren't true Muslims. They're not real Muslims because they've attacked other Muslims. And that's just blatantly not true. Muslims have fought Muslims for years. Sunnis and Shia have been killing each other off for a couple hundred years.
Several hundred years. I think it's more than a couple hundred.
Well, yeah. Well, I did that to be generous.
Just okay.
For sake of discussion, it's probably a few thousand. But
no.
Or close. Well,
1400
years old, so a couple hundred. Anyway.
A few hundred. How's that?
Yeah, a few hundred. Fuck it. I'll use your words, Joel. So this no true Scotsman fallacy, this meme is like saying, and I use this argument with another friend of mine, which interestingly enough kind of agreed with the logic, and that's like saying that the Northern Ireland War, the War of Northern Ireland, was not a religious war. It's not Protestants and Catholics killing each other. It's not two Christian groups killing each other. It's a war of something else. No, by definition, it was started as a war between two separate Christian sects to kill each other. For one wanted freedom of their people, the other wanted to maintain the territory, but it was Christian on Christian. That was the purpose of the war. It was a Christian war. Same thing with this. ISIS, ISIL, whichever you want to use, are killing off other Muslims, yes, but they are trying to establish a Muslim caliphate that meets their version of Islam. By definition.
And this is sectarian, too.
Yeah.
This goes down sectarian lines, for the most part. And another thing to consider with the no true Scotsman fallacy is, the idea, the sort of undercurrent, the foundation of it is just to state, and I know you guys know this, but I'm just for our listeners or what have you, and maybe just to express to them that we actually understand this. the idea is that you have a premise, a working. Because of circumstance, you decide to actually change what the premise is, so that it's no longer about that; it's about something else. Kind of mid-sentence, you change the subject, and that's what this is about. Because, certainly before ISIS, got to the level which we find it now, there was no questioning whether or not these people were Islamists, because they certainly are. Now I realize, and we'll probably get into this down the way, but there's some language with at least one of these memes that uses the word represent, and we could certainly unpack that later, because that's far more nuanced than the other. But so it's clear to me that what we're doing now is because things have gotten to the point that they are now, with the profound, extreme nature in which these people, or whatever you want to call them, ISIS, levy justice.
These people?
Yeah.
These people?
Yeah, I don't even want to call them people. Thesies.
Wow.
These beings.
Voting for Trump now? What's up?
Okay. All right, I'm not being racist right now. These are ideas, people. Ideas.
Well, and you can't be racist against a religion.
That's what I'm saying.
You're a bigot. Certainly.
Yeah, sure. So I certainly have the potential to be a bigot towards religion, but not racist. When I say I mean the collective I, if that even makes any sense. But
that would be.
But yeah. So.
And it's only if you're the monarch.
Yeah, I guess so.
I thought that was the royal we, not the royal
or a demigod.
Yes, it's the royal we. Yes.
Okay.
Or yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not a Nintendo fan, but
W-E, not W-I-I.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So much lost in the spoken language. So yeah. I just wanted to kind of define our parameters here a little bit. So. Anybody want to?
The other side of that, and I know that you're hesitant, or maybe that's the wrong word. Sometimes you seem hesitant to argue the position that they represent Islam. They may not represent the version of Islam that the majority of Muslims hold. But they do and are representative of Islam. And the argument that I had with somebody else was that he was trying to push that this particular group of Islam doesn't represent Islam like the KKK doesn't represent Christianity. And my argument was the exact counter to that. I disagreed fully. The KKK does represent Christianity, just like the Westboro Baptist Church does represent Christianity. It may not represent the version of Christianity or Islam that you or John or I are comfortable with, but it does represent Islam, just like the KKK or Westboro Baptist Church represent Christianity. It doesn't represent all Christians or all Muslims.
And this goes both ways, too. Because the thing is we live in such a way that we don't have the ability to decide for somebody else what their motivations for anything are. Okay, exactly. We can't control somebody's mind. So if somebody says, in good faith, if you'll pardon the turn of phrase, that
no, I don't tolerate the word faith on this fucking podcast.
Damn it! And if either of you mention it one more time, I'm gonna
shut this shit down.
That's what it was. I'm gonna shut this shit down faster than you can say. I don't remember what you said.
Oh God! All right, I'm gonna try to just power through that.
You, John, so don't take it personal.
Oh no, I never did.
Nor should you. Like Al sitting up on his high racist horse there.
Bigoted.
So,
It's a bigoted horse. It's not racist. I don't know what color my horse is.
Oh yeah, today's topic, you're just a bigot. I don't know. There's still time. So, anyways, as I've completely lost track of what I was saying, my point is that you're not allowed to postulate somebody else's motivations. You're not allowed to do that. If somebody says that I'm doing this in the name of Allah, you have to grant them that. You just do.
No, you don't.
You do. You have to grant that they believe that.
Okay,
No,
yeah,
They're representing the version of Islam they think is true.
Technically, John's right here.
Wait,
you
what?
don't have to. Technically, John's right. You don't have to grant them that.
No.
A responsible person would.
Objectively, if you're making any attempt at objectivity, then you have to grant them that, or at least be charitable to their belief that they're actually being honest with you and representing their version of Islam or whatever other ideology or belief system you want to put in here. So
I would prefer to use the word empathetic, but okay.
That works.
Empathetic?
Yes, empathetic.
Okay.
Empathetic to their beliefs.
Yeah.
I don't have to grant them anything.
No, you don't have to. Okay. Again, I don't mean to use absolutes here because obviously I'm falling into pitfalls I didn't see in that regard. But what I'm saying is that if you're making an attempt at objectivity and someone says this is why I'm doing something, it's more of an honest approach to take them at their word for that than to postulate some other manufactured reason for them doing it. It takes more cognitive work to do the former or the latter than the former.
Can we clarify a couple of things before we proceed?
Yeah.
Absolutely, John. Go ahead.
So we're not talking about objective things here. From both sides, this is a very subjective topic.
Yes.
What we're talking about is tolerance. Whether or not one person is going to listen to what one other person has to say and either agree to disagree or agree to not disagree and fight. Those are really the two options. So, and it's very subjective whether or not one will accurately portray his or her beliefs, and equally subjective whether or not the other person is going to listen and respond in a tolerant or intolerant fashion. I have been known to respond in intolerant fashions, and I'm generally a very tolerant person. I've also been known to respond very tolerantly about things that I feel very strongly about. So when it comes down to it, the objectivity of this is really very irrelevant. There's nothing objective that we can derive from any of this.
That's not what I was saying, though, John. I was saying making an attempt at objectivity, trying to get as close to the truth as we can. I think that's an important distinction.
Hang on, the truth about what? Because the people doing the arguing are trying to determine the truth of whatever belief they're talking about. The objectivity where you are concerned, I know you're an atheist and you have a tendency to dig into these things. What your objectivity is all about is determining whether or not somebody actually believes something or if they're just spouting off what somebody else has told them to say.
That's true, but at the same time, the thing is it makes more sense to work under the assumption that somebody is probably telling the truth, and then if you don't think they're telling the truth, to figure out what their reasons for lying are, but to postulate some other reason that they're doing stuff without doing that other work first is too big of a leap for me.
And when somebody, and to jump on Joel's coattails for a moment, yeah. When somebody specifically says, I'm doing this because, I'm doing this in the name of, and the reason
then they
why
blow themselves up to boot,
because, and they kill people, to go, no, wait, they didn't do that because of this. is intellectually dishonest, and it's disrespecting the people they've hurt.
You know what? I'll grant you that. You're absolutely correct.
And I also want to just
I want to save this moment.
Okay.
Well, and mind you, there is a flip side to that.
And what's that?
So you can savor the moment all you want, but when we go overseas and we kill people, it's the same thing. There is a belief that we are fighting about. For example, when we went to Iraq, our belief was that Iraq was sponsoring terrorism, that Saddam Hussein was a bad guy, that, they had weapons of mass destruction, whatever it was, there was a belief there.
Yeah.
None of those beliefs really panned out into real objective truths, but, even saying that Saddam Hussein is a bad guy, you really can't objectively say that, because there were a lot of people in Iraq who thought he was God.
No, you can. I think there are definitely some objective ways in which you can reach that measure.
I think there's a great video and a speech by Christopher Hitchens that covers this.
Yes, and I think I've probably seen that.
Yeah, for the listeners, please go search that out. If you listen to the show,
we'll put a link. We'll put a link.
Oh, we will. Will
for
we?
that? Yeah. When I say I mean the collective owl.
Yeah. So I gotta go search for this shit and put it in when I post it. Thanks.
The one mentioning
for that.
I got a mouse in my pocket, I guess. But
at least when I mention stuff, I give you a link in our little chat window down there.
That is true.
Well, I don't have the most reliable internet at home right now, so.
Oh, come on, for a link. All right.
Well, first I gotta search it, so I gotta wait.
Wolf.
I gotta wait for the 10 minutes for it to fucking load YouTube, because I guarantee you one of my kids got it online. Even though
I'll do it for you,
to.
buddy. I'll take one for the team. All right, assuming I remember. But so here, I just wanted to also clarify. I'm in no way suggesting that it's impossible that somebody could say they're doing something for one reason and not be honest about it, and that the other agent in this scenario knows why they're doing it. I'm not saying that scenario isn't possible. I'm playing the odds here with these kinds of statements. I'm also looking at the logic as best as I can possibly comprehend it to what would be the motivation for somebody to do a suicidal act and say they're doing it for a particular reason. They're not going to be getting out of it somehow down the road. So it seems like if you're going to do something on your deathbed, that's the time that you're going to be probably the most honest in your whole fucking life, I would imagine. So that's something that we need to kind of take into consideration. And whether or not the leaders believe this stuff, again, somewhat irrelevant. So
you almost sound as if you admire these suicide bombers.
I don't. What I'm saying, I'm not qualifying this stuff at all. I'm not qualifying it. I'm just trying to play the odds here, trying to see what makes the most sense.
And Joel, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. These people are obviously very devoted to whatever it is that they're devoted to. The question is that thing that they're devoted to worthy of being devoted to? And that's really the question that we're trying to get at. I have the deepest respect for the people who are fighting this war on both sides. The people on the ground. It's the leaders that I have the trouble with. So now let's further clarify a couple of things. ISIS, we've never really discussed ISIS in any depth. So let's talk history for a second. Islam, Judaism, Christianity, at their core, these things are
fraud.
Well,
Abraham.
Thanks, Al. That's nice. They are systems of law. Okay, Judaism is founded on a system of law. Islam, in a big way, is an expounding of that, is a reframing of that in more Arabic terms and less Jewish terms. Christianity, in another way, is a rebellion against that law. So, when speaking from a historical critical point of view, fundamentally, these religions are nothing more than sets of laws. So, keeping that in mind, just drink the Kool-Aid for a minute and hear me out.
Nothing more. I'm having trouble drinking this Kool-Aid, man.
Just drink the Kool-Aid for a minute.
Okay.
They're fundamentally, they are systems of law. Now, if you're talking about one person's law versus another person's law, when we talk about extraditing criminals, we're determining whether or not someone has committed a crime in a country that will and is residing in another. Will these criminals be traded? Because not every law is the same in every country. So if not every law is the same in every country and not every law is the same in every religion, we respect each other's laws. So these religions should be respecting each other's laws. However,
there's exceptions to that.
No.
I'm trying to swallow it down. I'm trying.
Fine. The sticky part comes in the notion that each of these religions believe that they have a prophet, that they have a messenger from God who is delivering God's exact words to them. That's the sticky part. That's the reason they fight, because their laws are different. They can see that their laws are different. They're going to fight over whose laws are correct. The Islamic State itself is, in a big way, is more Islamic than any other Islamic organization today, because what they are trying to do is very much like some of these New Age Christian groups are trying to get back to, the original 12 apostles and Jesus. They're trying to get back to an original, pure kind of Christianity. That's kind of what the Islamic State is trying to do as well. They're trying to get back to that pure Islam in Abu Bakr's time, right after Muhammad, that immediacy. The original caliphate is what they're trying to reproduce. And they're trying to reproduce that feeling, that holiness, whatever they would call it. They're trying to recreate that here on earth so that they can feel, great, so that they can feel holy, or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. This is the bullshit that is being spouted. And that is why these people are fighting so hard for what they believe in, because they believe that they can achieve this state, this, with the capital S, this country, this nation called the Caliphate, that existed for a short period of time and was destroyed by the very same people who are trying to recreate it. The tension between the Shia and the Sunnis was what destroyed the Caliphate in the first place. There were some assassinations that happened there, and there was a falling out between a bunch of people, and a bunch of people went this way, a bunch of people went that way, and that was the first schism.
Well, I think that but my understanding between Sunni and Shia, and I don't know which one is which. I will certainly say where I don't know things, but my understanding is that one sect believes that Muhammad and his laws are the be all, the end all. The other believed that Muhammad's sons, who lived after, were also of divine orientation, I guess.
Yes.
And we're also able to make up laws. I know that's a really simplistic version of it, but that's Sunnis, kind of the main break.
Sunnis in general are of the opinion, again, I'm making a generality here. In general, Sunnis are of the opinion that the law is the law. It will not change. It cannot change. There are no more prophets. Muhammad was the prophet. Period. End of discussion. And the Shia are of the opinion that prophecy continues to occur and that it is possible for people to speak on God's behalf,
and
even down to the present day.
And the Shia are in the majority now, if I'm not mistaken.
We tried to make in Iraq, we tried to make it an even playing ground, but we did end up installing a bunch of Shia as most of the leaders.
85 to 90% of the world's Muslims are Sunni.
Yeah, Sunnis have the majority. Yeah, and the Sunnis also have the 13er sect, which is what Iran is.
Yes. And not all Sunnis get along, by the way. There are many divisions here.
Well, yeah, it's just like with Christianity. I mean,
right.
These things are predictable to a fault. Religion in general, and I suppose any kind of ideology, and gosh, even some sciences, I'd imagine, deviate like this. Maybe with not quite so much contempt for one another, but
I don't know that I would agree with that. I mean, I don't see Buddhists killing each other over Buddhist tenets. They kill each other over sectarian things, but Buddhism.
They used to, and just like with any religion.
That's an important. I'm sorry, Al. I just gotta go.
Well, they used to, just like Hindus used to, just like Jews used to, just like Christianity used to. Islam is roughly about that 1400, 1500 year growth plate where they're just going apeshit on everybody. Christianity did it, Judaism did it, Hindu did it, Buddhists did it, and eventually they got to the point where they're like, we can't act this way anymore in polite society or we're going to get fucking killed off. Give Mormons and Scientologists enough time, they're going to be doing the same thing here down the road.
And what I've been trying to interrupt everybody to say, and I apologize for that, it is at this point, this is when the actual ideas themselves that make up the ideology are really important. That's when, so when you have an ideology that has, as part of it, mandates to do awful things to apostates, to women who may, do something they consider to be adulterous, to gays, to lesbians, that kind of stuff. When you have language within the ideology itself that is dangerous, then it is going to manifest in its most extreme ways. So, now, the flip side of that, and I'm certainly not the first person to make this analogy, is if you have a religion where the doctrines are something like Jainism, where the goal of Jainism is to harm as few things while you're on this planet as you possibly can. An extreme version of Jainism would be very annoying and probably suicidal, but it wouldn't lead to what we're seeing now out of the Islamists. So that is an important point to make. Ideology, the ideas themselves are important. We can't just say religion is a religion is a religion is a religion. It doesn't work that way.
I'm waiting for
crickets on that.
I'm waiting for the punchline on that. It didn't.
There's no punchline. It does go somewhere.
You did sound like you were building up to something and kind of just cut it off.
Well, now you know why I'm single. I was overly excited and I ran out of road. Okay, I don't know what to tell you.
Was that 15 seconds or 15 minutes? Was it?
Felt like forever.
Well, it felt like forever. Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Anyways,
I am left unfulfilled on that one.
I'm sorry. I can't get a gem every time. My point is we and I feel like I'm spinning my wheels at this point. You can't just say that religions are going to hit this 1400 year mark and freak out, because freak out in one set of ideology or one set of ideas and a freak out in another are going to look really different, and that's why we have to have a critical nature that we approach religions with, and we can't just say, well, religion is religion. It's just not true. It's manifestly untrue.
I wasn't making that assertion.
I'm not saying that you are. I know you, Al. I know you wouldn't make that assertion. I'm saying that there are a lot of people that say people are going to believe what they're going to believe. You just have to let them do it. Well, maybe you have to let them do it, but you don't have to be quiet about it, because they have different levels of consequence depending on what kind of ideas we're talking about.
And this is okay. I'm gonna take a step back and I'm gonna say it again. That's why I call these things sets of laws, sets of rules. Here in America, we have a law that says thou shalt not murder.
That's not a law.
What is?
No, stop. No,
I
we don't have that law.
You
mean it is okay to murder?
It doesn't say thou shalt not murder. I'm sorry. Nowhere in any law book does it say that.
Paraphrasing it says you will not murder.
You're paraphrasing it in an awfully convenient manner.
Our homicide laws are very specific, and they say you can't take the life of an innocent person without justification.
Can I quote you on that? Either way, the point is, our laws...
I was closer than you were.
I'm sure you are. Our laws are very specific that it is not okay for you to walk up to another person who has done nothing against you and shoot them in the face. That is our belief, that person has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? We have this divine document.
No, we do not.
The
No, we
Bill of
don't.
Rights.
It's not divine.
Oh, but it is.
It's not divine.
It's not
divine.
It came from brilliant prophets of freedom who spoke of great things and fought against this ultimate evil force in order to make these things happen against all odds. They
did not just define the word divinity. So
they are not divine. It came from common people that had a valuable self-interest in not getting killed themselves. So they wrote laws that they would want to live under.
That's what our history books tell us. But either way, the point is, we have these beliefs.
Those are so reliable.
We have these beliefs that
John,
we
you're
teach our
pissing me
children.
off.
I should be. This is very distressing to me too. We have these beliefs that we teach our children in both. If you happen to be religious, you teach them in religious terms. But if you happen to not be religious, you teach them equally weird and absurd and possibly propagandic traditions. And
tell me what weird and odd traditions that I propagate to my children through indoctrination.
I couldn't possibly. I don't know your children well enough.
Speculate. What could it be?
America's the greatest country on the planet.
I've never said that to my kids.
Do you teach do you teach your children that they are American and they should pursue American goals?
No.
What's going to stop them from pursuing, I don't know, Mexican goals then?
Be more specific if you want a real answer.
You're going to have to.
Patriotism is just as much religion as anything.
It is an ideology.
It is an ideology. There you go.
I don't.
I totally agree with that.
Patriots, though.
Okay, so how is that any different from what these IS people are doing? They've got their patriotism. They've got their state that they're trying to uphold. The only difference is that their state comes from a religious background.
The difference is in the result. I mean,
I don't know about that. Have you seen what some of our revolutionary forefathers did to their British counterparts?
And I don't condone any of that. I mean, it's possible that we could have a worldwide caliphate and everything would be hunky-dory. I don't know.
No.
But that's not the world in which I want to live. I doubt it, too. That's my point.
The point that I'm trying to make is that these things are sets of law. People are arguing over which law is correct and which law is not correct. And the question that needs to be asked is, do we, either as Americans or as individuals, do we want to live under those laws? Do we want to allow those people to push their laws on other people? Do we want that kind of oppression happening on our planet?
Okay, so no. What's the point? Where are we going with this? I feel like we got lost here a little bit.
The original question was, are IS people, are these Islamic State people, are they Islamic? They are obviously Muslims. I don't think that they represent Islam. I think that they represent a country that they are trying to create, and in a very big way that they're revolutionaries.
He's trying to duck the Europe versus Christendom construct. Okay, so I finally caught on to where you are. So
I don't understand.
They are a representation of Islam. Whether you want to accept that as the reality or not, that's up to you. But the fact of the matter is, they say they are Islamic. They say, even in their own name, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or Iraq and the Levant, however you want it. And they are pushing an ideology based on a religious sect. Period.
Okay, I would call them a sect. I wouldn't call them representatives of much of anything except themselves.
We're all only representatives of ourselves. That's the point. That's the point, is you don't get to say to anybody else what they're representing.
Okay, John, we've had this discussion in the past regarding your view. You hold the view, or at least you presented in the past, I don't know if it's changed, that you're a Christian. Yes or no?
I call myself a Christian, yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
I don't believe that you are.
I love how you answer that question.
I don't believe that you are a Christian, but I accept that you view yourself as a Christian.
Okay, so just because I call myself... Here's the point where I make you guys think about what you're saying. Because just because I call myself a Christian, does that mean that I represent Christianity?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, you do.
From your perspective, you are representing Christianity.
You represent your version of what you believe Christianity is.
Even though 99.99% of Christians in the world would probably look at my beliefs and say, that dude's not a Christian.
Yeah, but the thing is you could put that spin on any single individual. Any single individual
can do the same thing too.
Can have faith that deviates in such a way that they are very unique in the way they approach Christianity. You could do that with anybody.
You could push the same no true Scotsman fallacy right back on them, which is occurring right now with the whole ISIS-Islam thing. And they could say, oh, he's not a real Christian. And you could go, well, I call myself a Christian. I believe in Jesus or, the Christian tenets or something, or some quasi version of Christianity. And you go, I feel I'm a Christian. Okay, that makes you a Christian. Regardless of whether or not they believe that you're a Christian or hold a Christian value, fuck them. It's your viewpoint.
Okay,
you view yourself and you assert yourself as such.
Okay,
you are a Christian.
So instead of using the word represent or representatives of, can we use denomination or form or variation on?
No.
Because honestly, every time you use the word represents Islam, whenever you say that Islamic State, ISIL, ISIS, whatever you want to call them, whenever you say that they represent Islam, you're committing a bandwagoning fallacy. You're lumping them into a huge category.
No.
With you.
No.
The funny thing is the people arguing against this aren't even using that word. We're having to defend it. It's being postulated as our view, and it's not really our view. So that's where you're wrong. They do represent their version of Islam that they are presenting forward. Period. They don't represent all Muslims. All Muslims aren't like this. A lot of Muslims probably would disagree with ISIS. But the fact is, they are saying they're Islam, they are Muslims, and they are pushing forth an idea, a representation of Islam. Okay, Al.
Whether or not, what?
I feel like we've spun this around.
I kind of feel like you're agreeing with me at this point.
I'm not. Listen, what we need to talk about now, because we're running out of time, is we need to talk about why we're talking about. Why is this important? Why do we think it's important to either call a spade? There you go, Al. Or whether or not we can dismiss these ISIS members as not actually representing Islam. The reason, and I'll start because I'm flowing here. The reason why I think it's important to make this difference is that once we establish the rules in which we're working, we can then start getting down to progressively more specific ideas and figuring out potentially how to solve these, assuming anybody wants to have the fucking conversation in the first place. But so if we can establish that, yeah, you know what, this is mostly about religion. Okay, well now we know what we're talking about. I'm talking about religion, you're talking about religion. Okay, is this about Islam? I'm talking about Islam, you're talking about Islam. If one person is saying, well, you're not talking about Islam, you're talking about something else, you can't even begin a conversation at that point. So I'm looking at this from a more practical standpoint than a philosophical one. If we want to actually make some progress in any of this, then we have to establish where everybody's coming from. And when somebody says they're coming from a particular space, we have to grant them that and then hope that we can have a productive conversation based on that.
So the objective of the conversation seems like it's very different from the conversation itself.
How so?
Well, okay. The denominationalism occurred in Christianity about 500 years ago. It happened a long time ago in Judaism. And it remains to this day a touchy topic among both Jews and Christians. There are many different sects of Judaism, many different sects of Christianity. The difference is that, for the most part, those sects have learned to agree to disagree, to look at what each other believe and say, okay, you know what, I see your point, but I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid, because that's not what I was taught. That's not what I believe. They've agreed to disagree. Islam is having a problem doing that right now, in particular with these Islamic State folks. They're having trouble drinking each other's Kool-Aid. So eventually they will figure it out, or Islam will rip itself to shreds, just like Christianity did. And they will learn to get along, just like we are learning to get along, hopefully, in this podcast.
Okay, so
they will, but it won't be through further extremism.
I have a question to shoot to you, John, specifically, because I have a feeling that Joel's going to agree with this. How did you determine I was an atheist?
Well, you told me you were.
And you just accepted that?
Of course. The countless,
was less gratifying than I thought it was going to be.
The countless arguments that we've had about whether or not a God exists, notwithstanding,
Okay. How do you determine that somebody is a Christian?
How do I determine if someone is a Christian or isn't?
Is.
Okay.
Are those two things very different?
Well,
I'm curious to get both your answers on either scenario, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I would begin by asking them, do you consider yourself a Christian? And if I see them doing something that I feel is not Christian, I would ask them, how do you, does that action that, let's say I meet a homosexual who calls himself a Christian. If I was of the opinion that homosexuality was incompatible with Christianity, I might ask them, how do you feel that is, compatible? How do you feel that is, is that a Christian thing to do? I would listen to them, but I'm a very tolerant kind of person. I have a tendency to hear what people have to say.
And then you would frame that conversation in theological terms.
Of course.
And that's what I'm saying. But what you have with Islam is that you have this concept of apostasy, where if you aren't doing it the right way, you need to be dead. That's basically what they say. And so
exactly
when you've got two sects, boy, it's getting late. That think that each other are apostates for the most part, until for some reason that some larger outside agent comes in, then I'm sure they would band right up, just like we would all if aliens came. But did I just ADD myself? I did. I started thinking about aliens and it was over.
Okay, so what the point that you were trying to make is that these different opponents in the Islamic State controversy, the IS people versus just about everybody else in the world, they're calling each other apostates because each feels that they are possessed of, that they believe in a more purer faith, that their set of laws is closer to divine than the other guys. Okay, so again, it falls down to that person's belief and what they are willing to tolerate, and the Islamic State is not willing to tolerate a whole lot. They're very strict. They're very straightforward about things. They're very black and white about things.
Okay, both sides are pretty set in their ways on this too. Let's remember, the Pew polls that have been taken, particularly about apostasy. There is a alarming percentage of Muslims that think that the appropriate sentence for apostasy is death. And when you're talking about
it depends on the set of laws that you're talking about.
Hold on, what? Please explain that. I don't
depends
understand.
on the sect that you're talking about.
No. I'm talking about they polled Muslims all over the world, and yes, it does depend on some level. The numbers are different, but there's still, regardless of Sunni, Shia, whatever the Shiite. I mean, I don't really know all of them. I have to confess my ignorance on that. But it's still an alarming percentage when we're talking about billions of people that believe that the appropriate punishment for apostasy, if for those who may not know what apostasy is, that means denying the religion once having accepted it or having been exposed to it even, I think, then that's terrifying to me. So it's not just ISIS that's out there, throwing gay people off of buildings or whipping women to death or lashing journalists for doing certain things saying certain things against certain ideas or people. This is happening a lot. You're not seeing this as much with other religions now.
Don't we do the same thing to our murderers? People who commit murder in the United States are brought up on charges, they go to a trial, and they're put in jail, and eventually, if that state that they're in has capital punishment laws, they're going to end up on the electric chair. So
this isn't binary. It's not binary.
Hold on. Did you really just compare apostasy to murder?
I did. Absolutely.
That's the problem. We can't give them. We can't grant them that. There's no reasonable factor that says that that's okay to say those things are equal in any way.
So hold on, because this is where I'm thinking John might be high right now. Because
I'm going to get there if this keeps up.
You just compared apostasy, the refusal to accept a religion, essentially,
or rejection
murder,
of
to murder. So basically, you just compared me to a fucking murderer.
We don't. We do not convict murderers solely on the basis that they have taken a life. We commit these people to jail time and or capital punishment because they have deprived another person of their natural rights.
There is a vindictive quality to our justice system that is a totally viable topic for another podcast. I absolutely agree with you.
So we commit these people to death because they have denied another person their freedom. Our law system, if you want to call it, our patriotic religion here in the United States is all about freedom. It's all about the person's individual freedom to choose, to believe what they want, to do what they want. Okay, this is the sense of freedom on which our laws are based. Okay, if you choose to deny those laws, if you choose to deny that is, I need to be allowed to commit murder because that's what I want to do, and that's my freedom to do that. So I am following the law. You're the Scotsman here. Well, I'm sorry, I'm the Scotsman here. You're the not true Scotsman. You're telling me I can't commit murder. It's my freedom. You see where I'm going with this? So yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You are just blatantly fucking wrong here. There's a complete separation from your logic and reality.
Well, I never said that what I was talking about was real.
Can you, John, do me a favor here, because I want to be maybe slightly more charitable to you than Al's able to at the moment. Can you try to frame that up in a different way, and maybe something a little more succinct?
We Americans have our belief system, and when someone violates that, when they fall away from that pure faith about freedom, about liberty, about law, when someone falls away from that person is an apostate. You can call it whatever you want, you can frame it using whatever words you want, but the concept is the same. That person has chosen to walk away from those laws, to give up those rights, to walk away from that lifestyle and do something else, and therefore that person is a danger.
Here's the difference, John. Here's the difference. In Islam, or even Christianity during the 1600s, if you chose or you choose to leave Islam, they will fucking kill you. If you choose,
we're talking about words here. We're talking about words.
Hold on just a second. If you choose to leave the U.S. and become an expatriate, you live on a fucking island. You don't get fucking bombed. You don't get blown up. You don't get killed.
Halt right there, because I'm not talking about expatriates. I'm not talking about expats at all.
Yes,
I'm talking about people who have chosen to give up the law and stay here.
Well, hold on. See, hold on. You're taking an extra step here. In Islam,
you're talking about Native Americans.
Hold on, Al.
Right now.
Hold on just a second. In Islam, if you say the words, "I am no longer a Muslim," you are then subject to being put to death. In your scenario, if you say, "I no longer wish to subject myself to the law of the nation," you're not instantly subject to penalty. It's only when you break those laws. You have to take another step beyond what you're saying in order to be punished. There's a huge cavernous difference there.
I don't know that I would call it cavernous, but I will grant you that there is a slight difference there. Because we
words and actions, I mean, I don't understand that.
Anyone who breaks the law in this country is effectively killed.
You're talking about thought crime versus action crime. I mean,
no, not at all. I'm talking about action crime and thought crime, both. People who commit crimes in the United States are essentially killed. People who commit felonies, listen to me.
I'm listening.
Don't interrupt. Listen to me.
No, because there's a huge difference. We as podcasters are on the radio. We can disagree with any law in the U.S. at any time. I could literally say right now, I don't want to be a U.S. citizen anymore. I don't get fucking shot and blown up tomorrow for that fucking shit. I get laughed at, usually.
You're not following what I'm saying.
No, I'm disagreeing with what you're saying because you're fucking wrong.
All of your responses are using examples that are not pertinent to the concept that I'm trying to get across to you. Okay? You're calling... Okay.
Let's try this again. Try again, John. I will fully listen to what you have to say. I'm sorry if I've been cutting you off.
If you commit a felony, are you going to be able to have a decent life?
Depends on the felony.
If you murder somebody, let's just for simplicity's sake go to one of our more profound penalties. It's unlikely you're going to be able to have a life that is good on most standards that we would agree.
Let's look at a lesser felony, if there is such a thing, that is far more common. If you are in possession of too much drugs, and you are therefore a felon, you are put in jail for X number of years. When you get out, are you going to have a decent quality of life? Are you going to be able to find a job? Are you going to be able to find an apartment that's decent? Are you going to be a member of that society? No, because you committed a crime that earned you an apostate status among the Americans in their legal system. God,
but the difference is you actually did something. Yes, there are laws in both areas. To say that's binary, that these laws can't be subject to critical analysis to say which laws are better and which laws are worse doesn't make any sense to me.
What did you?
Of course, you can say what laws are better and what laws are worse based on a basic understanding of morality and how we get to morality. What
did you ultimately do? Listen to what you're saying. Listen to what I'm saying, and listen to your response. In the case of, I don't know, a gram of heroin. Let's say a pound of heroin. What crime? What have you done?
See, here's the thing, John. I don't disagree with you about that topic. So I don't know. I don't disagree with having drugs on you, and yet yes, and we can debate whether or not that's true, or whether or not that's a reasonable thing to put somebody in jail for. We could debate that, but we can debate that. I'm going to say that again. We can debate whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea. You don't get that in many of the Islamic, especially extreme Islamist areas of the world. I don't know how to. I feel like you do understand the difference between a thought crime and a crime, regardless of.
Really do. I just described it to you.
I don't.
Okay,
I guess I don't understand. I mean, that's the only thing I can answer at this point. Is I don't know. I understand.
I'm missing something. Was there more to your thought experiment to help me?
I'm going to say no, because you guys are absolutely correct. This is going very long, and I'm having a difficult time trying to get my point across to you guys. So,
well, let me try to get my point across to you, and maybe there's a communications barrier here. Okay, so let's take this from the other side. So, say I'm just average Joe. You work for me, okay? And you say that you don't want to be an employee of mine anymore. Okay? You just say it. You haven't quit. You didn't terminate. You just said out loud, you know what, I don't think I want to work here anymore. Should I have the right to kill you? You haven't acted. You simply said out loud that you don't consider being an employee of mine anymore.
if you consider firing that person to be essentially killing them, then yes, you do.
No, actually killing somebody. Actually killing the person for saying out loud that they're thinking about not wanting to work for me.
Okay, excising the person from the community and eliminating them as a threat to the community is the ultimate goal in any system of law that kills other people. A system of law that is designed to eliminate life, it does so in order to eliminate the possibility that that life can be a threat to the other lives that adhere to that system of law. Do you accept that assertion?
I do.
No, I don't fully accept that assertion, and here's why. The difference between what we're talking about and what you're asserting actual physical punishments for actual physical acts. So, say John Doe rapes Jane Smith. He's committed an act. If he simply says, I want to rape Jane Smith, and then you punish him for saying that, that's the difference. The actual act of doing something versus this statement of doing something. So, in Islam, and Christianity has it too in there, the apostate, if you say, I don't want to be this anymore, they encourage their followers to fucking kill the person. Actually kill them. Not ostracize them, not, force them into absolution or abandonment or the other fucking, I can't think of the word right now. Shun them, whatever. They don't push them out of the community. They encourage the community to kill the person. So, just like in India right now, where rape victims are being fucking murdered because they're not Muslims, or women are being raped in Scandinavian countries because they're showing skin and the people that are visiting there that happen to be following Islam don't agree with that type of viewpoint. That's different. Those are physical acts of physical aggression based on refusing to accept an idea. So the minute I say, I don't believe in Christianity anymore, in this country, Christians can't kill me. They're not supposed to. Some of them may try. Some of them made death threats. I can still freely say it. In Islam, you can't just freely say it without being fucking killed.
Not necessarily everywhere in Islam, but a good portion.
There are atheist fucking bloggers and podcasters over in the Philippines and Thailand that are being hacked, and Indonesia, physically hacked to death with goddamn machetes for simply saying, I'm not a fucking Muslim anymore.
Well, and let me just say to John's point, because I actually do agree with the basic premise that any kind of system of government, however you want to define that, if they are through the state or what have you, however you want to however that manifests, making the decision to kill people because of breaking laws. I do believe that they're probably doing that because they genuinely feel that there is a threat to the society that they want, rather than killing people just out of some psychopathic joy. There's that certainly present, but I think generally speaking that your statement was mostly true as I heard it.
I will grant you that these Islamic State people do seem to be taking a little bit more pleasure in what they're doing than I would be comfortable with in any kind of reasonable circumstance. They are nuts. They are crazy. I am not defending the Islamic State under any circumstance whatsoever.
I'm not saying that you are.
However,
nobody thinks so.
I just wanted to clarify that and make that perfectly clear to our listeners. What I am suggesting, however, is that ostracizing and apostasy and all of these concepts, these things are not just religious. These are concepts that span the breadth of the human tradition and the human condition. These are things that we do to each other all the time because we consider each other threatening for whatever reason. The situation with the drugs that I described earlier, if somebody's got a pound of heroin and we put them in jail for 20 years and then after they get out of jail, they can't find a job, they can't get a decent place to live, that's basically a capital punishment. We're committing that person to a life, we're sentencing that person to death by banishment, or death by, what would they have called it in the 14th century? Death by elements. They would sentence that person to the elements, and they would die by exposure, whatever you would call it. We're basically sentencing those people to death. And it's in a very real sense, perhaps not in an absolute sense, but in a very real sense, we're doing things very similarly to the way they are doing things. We're just taking less pleasure in it.
Well, here's the thing.
I think that could start it as well.
You really the bright line here is that in a liberal society we can discuss ad nauseum whether these things are good ideas or bad ideas. Progress might be slow to come, but we can have the conversation. We can keep the debate alive. All right?
Yeah.
You can't do that in these totalitarian type, religious idea. What's the word I'm looking for?
You don't have to be religious. Come on now.
No. The ideology. Okay, you're right. I'm using that because that's what we're talking about right now. It's just for simplicity's sake. But yeah, any totalitarian ideology, you can't have those conversations. And I think that's the difference. I think that, and hopefully we can put a bow tie on this. That the point is that we can't make any progress if we're not having conversations. And we can't have conversations until we acknowledge what both sides are saying and figure out where they're coming from and try to be honest about that.
Absolutely agree.
And that's the point of all of this neither side of this huge debate is being honest, nor are they being charitable to the other side's views. And until you do that, it's just gonna get worse and worse and worse.
And that's the weird part. You know what happened? I was just having this conversation with my wife the other day. What happened in the late 90s that all of a sudden this quest for tolerance turned to, you know what happened? I'll tell you what happened. 9/11 happened. The tolerant 90s very quickly turned into an isolationist 2000s. The double aughts became very polarized. And I think in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Iran, in these Muslim countries that were kind of on the fence already as far as both their tolerance and their totalitarian ways, I think that they were pushed in one direction or the other, mostly in the totalitarian direction, because of our response to what a few of them did. Yeah. One action by a few made the United States and Britain and France and Germany, the Allied countries, the NATO countries really, it pushed us. 9/11 really did a number on
Well,
us.
this stuff was going on before 9/11. Our covert actions in many of these countries had huge consequences.
But our
So,
general response
we are
was
not-
not what it is today.
No, but I'm saying that this ball was kind of already rolling. I mean, we had things in Egypt in the 70s and 80s, and I mean, this stuff's been going on for a while. Certainly, 9/11 is a catalyst moment. I don't mean to take away from that, but
It changed the culture in America.
yeah. Well, it also we had those few years of rather profound patriotism, and some people realize that that's probably a little bit more than is necessary, and then another faction kept riding that wave, and it actually, I feel like that created a new division in America. So, and it really has to do with ideological and faith-based thinking, because again, you can definitely call patriotism, nationalism an ideology, because it just for whatever reason it just turns into that. I mean, you can certainly have logical and rational roots to in which to just be proud of the country in which you live, but it seems that patriotism quickly goes beyond that, and all of a sudden you're being proud for reasons that don't really make any sense.
And it becomes a religion, absolutely.
It becomes a religion, yeah. So
And
any set of ideas can take off and be a religion, and if you have a circumstance in which critical thinking is not encouraged, then that's what you're going to end up with every time.
I'd just like to end on the note that, even with atheism, communism, Sovietism, whatever you want to call it, what the Soviet bloc did with atheism is a very similar concept. They turned it into an ideology, they turned it into a faith, if you want to call it that. They turned it into a religion, and they enforced that with an iron fist. So
I knew this was coming up, and that's a topic for another podcast. But no, they didn't push atheism. They pushed a human, almost demigod version of the state, which wasn't atheism.
Yeah.
Atheism is simply a proposition on one question. That is it.
You just have to ask, was critical thinking encouraged or not? That's where you really need to, that again, that's the big bright line is...
you know what, I'll buy that. My statement
we-
was a little more McCarthyist than it probably should have.
Well, that's okay. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I'm just saying that any system in which critical thinking is suppressed, and you're going to end up with ideology. I mean, that's where whatever it is, it doesn't matter what your God is. You don't have to have a God, but that's still a God. So,
Granted.
all right. Hey, you guys, we really do have to wrap this up. So, do we have any final thoughts? I would like to just say that this got super heated, but I hope everybody knows that all three of us love each other, and we're not going to even have one moment's worry tomorrow about whether or not, or even now, about whether or not we'll continue this. This is how it's supposed to be done. You're supposed to have conversations like this that are really hard and really heated and really emotional, and then you know what? We're all brothers, and that's how it goes, man.
America is hard like that. America is all about personal freedom. It's all about listening to someone say something that makes your blood boil, and then turn around and give them a hug and say, you know what? Love you, see you tomorrow.
Yep, exactly.
And I want to point out here that our conversation, as heated as it got between John and I know that there's a lot of, hostility when it comes to ideas. None of that was ever directed at John himself. As I wasn't calling him names, he wasn't calling me names. We were attacking each other's ideas vigorously. But that's all it was an attack on the idea. Granted, I did say he was fucking wrong, but I didn't say that he was a bad person or shit like that. So there was no animosity there. The ideas we just vehemently disagree with. And there was some communications errors, communication issues, and we do view things from a completely different viewpoint, just like Joel and I have had some of those really heated ideas. But it doesn't come a hostile thing. It's I think your idea is stupid, or he thinks my idea is ridiculous, and we're not seeing it. But in the end, we just go, you know what? We can talk about it later, or we can cool off and talk. Again, it's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal because, I mean, as profound as the stuff it is that we're talking about, it's still, luckily for us, mostly an abstraction, and it just doesn't come close to negating, love and empathy and all the things that we preach about as being important to us. So, I mean, I hope that's a lesson that everybody can take away from something like this is that none of this is going to circumvent or mitigate love and compassion for each other. It's just not worth it. So keep some perspective.
And a big thing is the respect. I mean, I respect John. I respect Joel a lot. I know they respect me.
Yep.
We can respect each other. We don't have to respect each other's ideas. That's where the growth comes from, is challenging each other's ideas, whether we agree with them or not.
You know what? When I build my shack on Walden Pond, I'll make sure that there's a room for both of you. You can share the room. You'll have a bunk bed in there, but yeah.
I get top.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you guys, everybody have a great week. I hope to have another podcast coming your way here pretty soon.
Gentlemen, thank you for a heavenly debate.
Fuck off, John.
All right. Love you guys.
All right, see ya.
So you think you can break me, but you